I still remember the exact moment my chest tightened, and my throat burned with the kind of ache that comes only from betrayal. It was the night we arrived at the resort, the so-called family getaway my parents had been planning for months. We had just checked in. The lobby smelled faintly of polished wood and chlorine drifting from the pool outside. My siblings buzzed around, each with their keycards already in hand, talking about who would get the balcony view. My mother wore her usual impatient smile, the one that seemed glued on whenever strangers were watching. I walked up to the desk, suitcase in hand, waiting for mine. "Excuse me," the receptionist asked, looking slightly confused. "And your room?" My father turned then, his eyes flickering toward me for the briefest second before he looked back at her. His voice was calm, deliberate. "Oh, she's not booked. We'll figure something out." The world tilted sideways. I blinked, certain I had misheard. "Not booked? What do you mean?" My mother sighed, as though I were a child fussing over a misplaced toy. "There were only so many rooms available, and well, you can manage. You're grown now. Don't make this a scene." Manage. That word cut deeper than any knife. The receptionist, visibly uncomfortable, glanced between us. My siblings snickered quietly, whispering something I couldn't catch. I stood there, my heart hammering, realization dawning like a cruel sunrise. I wasn't an oversight. I was an afterthought. And for the first time, I decided I wasn't going to let it slide. Main conflict, the lonely night. I dragged my suitcase outside, refusing to let them see me cry. My parents pretended not to notice, too eager to get to their rooms. A bellboy offered to help, but I shook my head. The air was sticky, hot, pressing against me like invisible hands. What hurt wasn't just the lack of a room, it was the message behind it. I had always been the one they relied on. The responsible daughter. The one who stayed behind to help when bills piled up, who gave up parties for babysitting, who swallowed her words when my siblings snapped at me. And yet, when it came time to be counted, I wasn't counted at all. With nowhere else to go, I sat by the pool until the stars came out. My suitcase was tucked against my legs, a makeshift shield. I told myself I'd sleep right there, on a deck chair, if I had to. The idea was humiliating, but humiliation wasn't new to me. As the night deepened, I pulled out my phone and searched for nearby hostels. Every option was either full or ridiculously overpriced. I almost gave up, until a listing popped up, private guesthouse, walking distance from resort. It was impulsive, reckless even, but I booked it. When I arrived, dragging my suitcase down a quiet back street, the small house surprised me. Whitewashed walls, blue shutters, a faint smell of jasmine in the air. An elderly woman greeted me warmly, as though she had been waiting for me all along. "You look tired," she said, her accent soft but firm. "Come inside." That night, lying on a bed covered in hand-stitched quilts, I felt an odd mixture of pain and relief. Pain from my family's rejection. Relief from the kindness of a stranger. But I didn't know yet that the decision to stay there would change everything. Twists and revelations, a different kind of family. The days that followed were surreal. My family barely texted me. When I saw them at the resort pool, they acted as though my absence was trivial. My siblings posed for pictures, cocktails in hand. My mother scolded me for drama when I refused to join their dinners. But while they ignored me, the guesthouse owner, her name was Eleni, welcomed me like kin. She told me stories about her late husband, about raising children during hard times. She cooked meals that tasted of memory and warmth, roasted lamb, fresh bread, olives picked from her own trees. One evening, she placed her hand over mine and said, "Family is not only blood. Family is who sees you, who makes space for you at their table." Her words struck something deep inside me. For years, I had bent myself into shapes just to fit into the spaces my family left for me, spaces that were shrinking with every passing year. But in this tiny house, for the first time, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt seen. The strangest twist came on the third night. I had just returned from a walk by the shore when I saw my father standing at the gate of the guest house. His face was pale, his expression unreadable. "We didn't know where you were," he said, voice low. "Your mother is worried." I laughed bitterly. "Worried? Or embarrassed that the staff noticed your daughter sleeping by the pool?" He flinched, and for once, he had no ready comeback. Instead, he looked away. "You should come back to the resort." "No," I said firmly. "I have a room." Thanks to someone who actually cared. That night, he left without pressing further. But the shock on his face lingered with me. Maybe, for the first time, he realized I wasn't going to silently accept their neglect. The confrontation, tables turned. By the fifth day, rumors had spread among the resort staff. People whispered about the family who left their daughter without a room. My siblings avoided eye contact with me entirely. My mother, tight-lipped, called me ungrateful for choosing a stranger over them. But the final blow came at dinner. They invited me, perhaps out of guilt, or fear of gossip. The restaurant was crowded, candlelight flickering across polished glasses. As I sat down, my father leaned in. "You've made your point. Now stop." I set my fork down slowly. "My point? That you're upset," he said. "Fine. We get it. But don't humiliate us." Something inside me snapped. I looked around at them, my siblings glued to their phones, my mother glaring, my father dismissive, and I realized I didn't owe them my silence anymore. "I didn't humiliate you," I said, my voice steady. "You did that all by yourselves. Do you even realize what you told me when you didn't book me a room? That I don't matter. That I don't belong in this family. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" The table went silent. My siblings shifted uncomfortably. My mother opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. "No. You don't get to explain it away. For once, you're going to hear me." And I told them everything, how invisible I felt growing up, how every sacrifice I made was met with indifference, how this trip had finally made me see the truth. When I finished, I expected anger. Instead, I saw shock. My father's face was pale. My mother blinked rapidly, as though holding back tears. For the first time, maybe ever, they were silent. Conclusion, an ending and a beginning. On the last day of the trip, my family packed in strained quiet. They didn't apologize, not outright, but something had shifted. My mother hugged me a little longer than usual. My father avoided my gaze, but when he handed me my suitcase, his hand lingered as though words had failed him. I returned to Eleni's guest house to say goodbye. She hugged me tightly, pressing a small charm into my palm. "For protection," she whispered. "And for courage. You already have both." On the flight home, I sat alone, staring out at the clouds. My family chatted a few rows ahead, their voices muted by distance. And strangely, I didn't feel left out. I felt free. Because I realized something, being excluded from their rooms had finally pushed me into my own. A room where my voice mattered, where I could choose who to call family. And as for my parents and siblings, maybe they would change. Maybe they wouldn't.